Jesus has just been spending time with Peter, James, and John. And he's they just had an amazing experience where they were on a mountain and Jesus was transformed and Moses and Elijah came down, and it was just an amazing event. And they come down from the mountain. In verse 14 of Matthew chapter 17, it says, when they came to the crowd, a man approached Jesus and knelt before him. Have mercy on my son, he said. He has seizures and is suffering greatly. He often falls into the fire and into the water. I brought him to your disciples, but they could not heal him. You unbelieving and perverse generation, Jesus replied, how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy here to me. Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of the boy, and he was healed at that moment. Then the disciples came to Jesus in private and asked, why couldn't we drive it out? It's interesting that they didn't ask him publicly. They wanted to know privately because he'd already rebuked them, but they say to him privately, why couldn't we drive this out? And he replied, because you have so little faith. Truly, I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. And some translations add, I think this is important, it will not come out unless with prayer. Here's the situation of a father who's in a tight spot. He doesn't know what to do. His son's falling when he's got seizures, and he convulsing the whole bit, and he brings his son to Jesus' disciples, to the other 9, apparently, when Jesus and the 3 were away with him, and the 9 of them couldn't do anything. The 9 of them are trying to heal him, and so he says, Jesus, I asked them, and that they couldn't do it, so I'm coming to you. I'm kneeling in front of you, and I'm asking for something. You don't understand how much money we spent on doctors. You don't know how much money we spent trying to figure this out and going to different hospitals and doctors and so on and so forth, but I'm coming to you now. I really need help with this. He's kneeling before him, and Jesus says, bring the boy to me. And he heals him. And his disciples are like, well, why can't we do this? Well, why weren't we able to do this? Like, you remember when you sent us out, you said that we're going to be able to drive out demons, and in your name we're going to be able to do all kinds of things, and when the spirits are going to listen to us, and diseases are going to be taken care of. You gave us that promise, but why couldn't we do this? This doesn't make any sense. It was due to their lack of faith. I think what they were doing or trying to do was they were offering their prayer in a way that it was as such that, here's the list of what I want you to do, God, but they weren't really talking to God. I think we can do that some of the time. I don't know, but this is how a lot of people shop now. They don't even go to the store. They just phone in and they get it delivered to their place. I'm not like that. I like looking for the red stickers or the yellow stickers. I like looking for a deal here and there. And I want to be able to touch when I'm buying. But, we live in a different age. And maybe, I don't know, maybe they got this understanding that, hey, people will do this from the way that some of us pray. We give them his shopping list, but we don't really want to touch the product in any way whatsoever, and we don't want to, get involved personally. We'd rather have somebody else do it for us. And I don't know what was happening with the disciples, but they didn't have enough faith to be able to get this boy to the point where he was going to be healed. I want you to turn over to Mark. Mark chapter 9, because the exact same story is said or talked about, but it's very different in the rendition of it. Same circumstances. In Mark 9, verse 14, Again, this is right after the transfiguration of Peter, James, and John. And when they came to the other disciples, they saw a large crowd around them and the teachers of the law arguing with them. There's some details in here that Mark has put down that Matthew did not put down. As soon as all the people saw Jesus, they were overwhelmed with wonder and ran to greet him. And Jesus says to them, "What are you arguing with them about?" A man in the crowd answered, "Teacher, I brought you my son who is possessed by a spirit that has robbed him of speech. Whenever it seizes him, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid. And I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not." Again, Jesus, like he did in Matthew, "You unbelieving generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy to me." So they brought him. And when the spirit saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy into a convulsion. He fell to the ground and rolled around, foaming at the mouth. Jesus asked the father's boy, "How long has he been like this?" "From childhood," he answered. "It has often thrown him into the fire or water to kill him, but if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us." "If you can," said Jesus. "Everything is possible for one who believes." Immediately the fathers explained, "I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief." When Jesus saw that a crowd was running to the scene, he rebuked the impure spirit. "You deaf and mute spirit," he said, "come. I command you, come out of him and never enter him again." The spirit shrieked, convulsing him violently. He came out, and the boy looked so much like a corpse that many said he's dead. But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him to his feet, and he stood up. After Jesus had gone indoors, his disciple asked him privately, "Why couldn't we drive it out?" He replied, "This kind can come out only by prayer." A little bit different rendition from Matthew's. Same story, same instance, a little bit more details about the boy and what happens to him and what the father is trying to get across to Jesus. But there's one thing that is very different from this account than Matthew's account. And it's the response of the father. "I do believe. I do have faith that you can do this, Jesus. Just help my unbelief." See, I think some of the time we think and expect God to think us to be superhuman in our faith, super spiritual, that God can't handle our doubts, that God can't handle us. You know what? Every single one of us is going to go through doubts. And I pray that the person that I've talked about gets to the point where they can say, "I do believe, just help my unbelief." I hope that he can get to that point, because there's nothing wrong with this. God can handle our doubts. He can handle our fears. He can handle our skepticism, and he can handle all these different things. But if we totally just give up and say, "I don't want to believe anymore," no. See, the father understood something very important. He could go to his doctors and physicians and whatever friends that he had to be able to get the help they needed, but he knew that wasn't going to take care of it. So he finds out about this religious guy that's walking through town and is healing people, and he's not around, so he goes with his cronies and says, maybe they can do it. Maybe his power is rubbed off on them. I've heard that they've done some healing. They can't even do it. So he got to the point that he knew that it's the only place that would be able to take care of it. And he went to the sources. And he went to Jesus. I think some of the time in our faith, we try to do things on our own so much. And we try to work out our faith so much by doing good deeds and by making sure that we read the right things. And, we can tick off all the boxes in our spiritual calisthenics that we have to do in our everyday life. And we omit one of the most important things is going to the source, going to Jesus, ultimately going to God. And that's what this dad did. He was like, there's nothing else that I can do. Jesus, you're my last resort here. Do you see what's happening with my son? And Jesus, he stops and he says, well, how long has this been going on? He engages with the man. This has been going on since birth. This is a dire situation. I don't know how old the boy was. But it was causing havoc in this man's life, and he was at his wit's end, and he's just like, I've got to get help here. I'll do whatever it takes. You don't understand the bills that I pay. Jesus, you're the only thing that will work. And I believe you can do it. But what happens is Satan gets in there, and he causes unbelief. And Satan will get in every single one of us at one point in our life, and he's going to get in there and he's going to dissuade us, and he's going to say, that's not possible. You shouldn't believe in that. That's just far-fetched. You know what? You're going to have some calamity happen to you, and it's just not going to be. And Satan's going to do whatever he can to ruin your faith, to shipwreck your faith, to knock the feet out from underneath you. And you can look at every single one of us. If we're all going to look at each other and say, is there some calamity that's happening in our life that could have shipwrecked our? Yes. Every one of us has had something happen to us in our life that we could have said, you know what, I'm walking. I don't want, this religion thing, this having a relationship with God. I've been doing this for so long, and look what happens. And sadly, there's people that walk and they lose their faith. I think it comes down to one simple thing. It's our connection. It's not the connection to the church, although that's good. We need the church. We need each other. It's not our connection to where we went to school or what we know or anything like that. It's not about what we've been able to achieve in our work life or anything like that. It comes down to one simple thing. What is our connection with Jesus? And we looked at over 25 people, and every single one of them were waiting for a Messiah to come. And we've got it. We have him at our disposal. This man had Jesus at his disposal that very day, and he kneels down before him. He says, I came to you because you're my last resort. And forgive me that I don't have the amount of faith that I need to, but I do have some belief in you. Some of the time, that's all we can do. Bring what we have. Not try to be superhuman Christians, not to be Superman or Spider-Man in our Christian faith that we can absolutely do anything. We can scale walls. It's not about that. Faith is not this hocus pocus, you're going to be able to. It's not a remedy. It's something that's deep inside of our heart that we believe, and we believe it to the point that we're going to act upon it. Again, I can look at different people who have gone through some amazing defeats in life. I can look at some that have gone through some, I'd say, pretty mild defeats and have walked. You can too. You can think of people that have gone through things. It's like, wow, how'd they ever get through that? You know how? They had faith in Jesus Christ. Oh, it might waver at sometimes. It might be a little tippy. There might be a little bit of unbelief there. But if it's just the size of a mustard seed, and we water it, we grow it, we prune it, it's going to grow into something that is very powerful, not because of anything that we've done, but because of who we have invested our trust and faith and hope and belief in. I pray that as we go through this, and we're almost done, Hebrews, and some of you will be happy about it, but I pray that as we look through these different men and women and their faith, it's not, oh, wow, that was a really neat story about how, they shut the mouths of lions. It's much, much, much deeper than that. It's about us. And we're going to sing the song. I didn't even have to ask John to choose it today. He got it right. Doesn't happen very often for John. But it's all about a blessed assurance. It's all about a faith, about what Jesus has done for us. And I pray that as we go through this time of learning about these great men and women of faith who didn't even receive, that we can grow in our faith, and that none of us ever get to the point where, you know what, I just don't believe anymore. So sad. Please pray. You don't have to mention the person's name. God knows who we're talking about. Pray for the situation. I just. The writer goes on in Hebrews chapter 4 through 6, and he says, without faith, it's impossible to please God. Our faith is so important. Again, it's not just our set of beliefs. It's what's inside of us that moves us to get closer to Him, closer to each other. We have so much to be thankful for. And some of the time, it's just going to be a little itty, I do believe. Help my unbelief. If that's all you've got, then take it to God. If you're going through a rough time in your life, take it to God. He can handle it. He can deal with it. And I can guarantee you that if you do, your faith will grow. You'll be better for it.